in Block 71 or in One North in general, there are a lot of high growth companies that they are hiring, right? So then I think that's kind of where we will see more, because a lot of consumption does not disappear. Consumption transits, right? So it's like you don't go to your shopping malls to buy things, you will still go online to shop, right? So consumer habits are changing, everything is going digital, and working from home, everything it's just gonna be here for an extended period of time. And assuming, so I believe that nobody expected this thing to last so long, right? But because around the world it's going so messy, right? So because it's so messy, that means we're going to continue to nurture this work from home habit and consuming online habit for quite a lot longer. So you'll start to see companies take changing processes very seriously to really focus on the work online and to work from home, and it's kind of all the remote stuff, right? So based on what Suikiat has announced,
yes.
Okay, there will be a lot of budget going into venture debt, going into direct funding. So if you don't want to start your own startup, you should really give a check for all these kind of tech companies or like startup companies. My experience working for this space is that they're always hiring all sorts of people. You don't need to be a coder to be in this space. There's like a whole bunch of people that are non-codes. And yeah, it's a growing space. Let's all try to be there, right? Because for like a better way to put it, the money is there, the government is doubling down. So I think that's a good area to be in.
Yeah, I agree. I think when people think about startups, I don't know about you guys, but it's my experience that people just quickly think about, you have to be a programmer, developer, but that's not true. There's a lot of other roles that you can jump into. Yeah.
By the way, for anyone that have questions, so like this first 30 minutes, we're warming up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the group. Feel free to raise your hand and we can add you into the audience, and then you can speak, right? And then we'll kind of interact accordingly. Don't need to be budget specific. I think we are not trying to like deep down analyze or is this budget good or not. We're trying to just kind of see based on the ongoing themes over the past year, and based on this new budget, how we're gonna like position ourselves better for 2021. Right. So if you have any questions, just raise your hands and come in. And if you think it's gonna be a fun time where Chuin Ting is gonna come on, Ben is gonna come on, then please share with your friends on socials and let's get a bigger reach. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think one of the more interesting pointers that I saw from the budget is the balloon spending for aviation, actually. Right, so I'm not sure why we are spending so much money to just keep the whole thing going, but it is what it is. So I just want to get a hand. If any one of you is in aviation, feel free to raise your hand and then come on and share your personal experience. Or if any one of you have some sort of experience to share over this 2020, how do you manage your budget? How do you change some practices to kind of meet the current situation? Feel free to raise your hand and come on and share your stories, your experience, and we can all learn together. And I'm going to throw that question to Sope. How have you changed your process in 2022? Just kind of make sure you keep going.
How have I changed my finances?
Like, do you tweak anything?
Right. Well, personally, for me, I don't think there was like a dramatic shift in terms of my finances. I mean, I guess when circuit breaker started, I had to buy a webcam. Like, I mean, that was like the biggest, like the most sudden expense. I was like, okay, well, I mean, yeah. So, in terms of like my budget personally, I guess when it was during the circuit breaker period, then I spent much less on transport and like the basic stuff. I'm sure everyone knows. Everyone's been through it because we all went through CB together. Yeah. But apart from that, I don't know. There's not much of a change for me. I mean, what about you? Did anything shift dramatically for you?
So I have a pretty crazy experience because I was actually staying in KL, right? So for all the podcast listeners, you probably know that I stayed in KL for a while, And one of my reasons that I decided to stay in KL, of course, is because budget is it's much more affordable to live there, and quality of life there it's pretty good also. Like, I wouldn't call it similar, but it's pretty good. Of course, if you are living there, then you will, for like a better way to be, you'll not live in a shabby neighborhood, right? So you'll probably live in a better neighborhood. So it was pretty good. But because of COVID, I got swung back. Right, so everything was in a mess. And then my friends were like, "Hey, you better come back," blah blah blah. And then so I got so riled up emotionally, and I decided to come back. So when I first came back, it was very hard because I was shifting right back into with my family, right? Because that was like the easiest way to settle back in. And it was just very hard staying with the fam lah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
But recently I've rented a studio to continue to produce a podcast, and also just kind of so that adds up to my expenses. But if you're talking about like spending money, I actually spend less. And I'll say that I'm the lucky guys because all the sector that I was in was like already very digital. Well, it's very online, very digital. So other than the podcast, I used to work for a cloud computing company, and I've invested in the markets for a really long time. So it's always been very, remote and online. So I wasn't hit hard, by the situation from a financial standpoint, but I was definitely hit hard from a social, and acclimatization standpoint. I struggled
definitely.
to come back. Yeah, so that was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I think I was a bit lucky. I don't know if I'm going to use the word lucky, but like it's a bit different for me because like I moved out way before the pandemic. So I mean, yeah, so it doesn't really apply to me in terms of like now that I have to pay rent, but I've always been paying rent, so like nothing new.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Anybody has some interesting stories to share? So there's a bit of construction here. Can you hear that?
Yes, but it's not that disruptive lah.
Okay, cool. Anyway, I think many people would probably be very interested to kind of see how the budget will affect the markets, because that's what they always say. They always say like, "Oh, we cannot release the budget in advance. It has to be a secret thing because it will shift the markets and whatnot." Right. So I personally do not invest like that. That means I do not time based on these kind of budget release and numbers. That's not the way I've been investing. But if you were to really focus and zoom in on that, then you will realize that a lot of the companies that were already hit hard will continue to probably take on some debt, right? And they probably struggle even further from a financial standpoint. So I'm not sure if the share prices will reflect, but yeah, just if you don't time the market, right, then just don't time the market.
Right. I mean, I don't think I will be doing that either. So same page. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to chase Chuin Ting to come on.
I thought you said she.
Yeah, she's coming on at 5.
Her meeting.
Yeah, she shifted meeting. She'll be coming on at 5. All right, so
Right.
that's the goal, and I think she has some interesting points about deleveraging CPF, because recently I think we are starting to see a lot of other. I don't want to name names, but other platforms, other robos promoting investing using CPF, right? So she has a very different viewpoint in terms of like, okay, if CPF is going to be such a situation, you're going to leverage into the market, and if you're going to put your savings and your quote unquote retirement money into the market, then you kind of run a risk of that volatility, right? And in times like this, you may want to consider to kind of roll back on that, right, and not be too active in terms of let's say you have personal finance that you need to meet, like you gotta pay HDB and all those kind of stuff. Then that's one way to just kind of roll back. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought, like kind of de-lever from the markets. Paul, give me a moment. Does anybody have something interesting to share? You can always raise your hands if you're in the audience. All right, Scott, are you seeing any hand raises? I don't know. I can't I can't work through this.
No, there isn't any hand raisers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Can you see me raising my hand now?
No.
Okay. Chang, can you try raising your hand?
No, he's in a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
It's okay.
he's in a meeting. So yes.
There would be an indication, like if somebody is raising their hand. Ah, yes. Yeah. So Amanda.
Mm. Okay. Hey, I wanted to pull her in. Come here, talk with us. Come. So did I manage to pull her in? Hi, Amanda.
Yeah, hi.
Awesome.
I just wanted to help you test the hand raising thing.
Okay, yes.
Thanks.
It's great. It's great. Yeah, and you're gonna stay here with us for a while.
You're trapped.
Yeah, you're trapped. You're in. For everyone else who want to join the conversation, feel free to join in. But yes, so I see from your bio, you're a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Really? How has it been for you so far this period?
It's actually okay because I have stage fright, so I don't really do many gigs. I was doing more online stuff anyway. Yeah. Hello?
So what kind of online stuff do you?
I just like to post covers on my social media and then like the original songs on streaming platforms. Yeah, and also I started listening to both your podcasts last year also when Circuit Breaker happened.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how I know Sope.
Yeah, we're friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
because
okay.
of the podcast. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So then. Okay, I'm always very cheesy. Like when people say they listen to podcasts, I was like, can I get some feedback? What do you like about the podcast?
I'm not. I can't really point out any specific thing, but I just enjoy waiting every Tuesday to listen to yours. So I've been diligently listening. Sometimes I don't even understand what I'm listening to, but it's just like a weekly thing for me to do now.
Cool. Then that means I failed in some ways.
No.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that works. Okay, that's cool. Anyway, Chuin Ting replied. It should be coming on real soon.
Nice.
About 10. I think she replied 4:49 lah. So it's about there. We're coming soon. For everyone else that's in the room, do you want to raise your hand, join the chat, and just kind of introduce yourself? That'd be fun.
How do I go back into?
I think only we can move you back into the audience.
Please move me back. I'm actually working now, so I like listening.
Oh.
Okay, move to audience.
All right.
Cool. Wait, can we invite? Oh, we can actually invite people to speak without.
Oh, without them raising their hand?
Yes.
It's stress lah. Later.
No, don't stress. Don't stress.
Yeah, if they don't want to speak, then
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool
Yeah,
stuff.
I see that you can just invite anyone.
Mm-hmm. Nice, so cute. Yeah. How was your experience actually in the afternoon?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, with the first session that we hosted.
Mm.
It was okay lah. I mean, not a lot of people turned up. I think there were more colleagues than members of the public. So basically, it was just like an open session, right? Anyone could just come in to listen to one of our podcast recordings. So we decided to just experiment. We were talking to a relationship counselor about navigating finances and your relationship, and then at the end we were just like, oh, if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand, and we just tried it out. I think it was okay. I was actually initially quite scared because I didn't know if everyone could hear all of our voices. Our guest, he has a very calming voice, so I wasn't sure if people could hear him, but it worked lah. It worked, yeah. So it was quite fun for an experiment, yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And we're experimenting on our end today.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely keep improving and give everybody a better experience. It's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think so I'm looking at some of the updates coming in. Right. So I think for the household updates, it's not very like big, right? You don't really see a lot of big stimulus relative to last year, of course, and I don't think we'll ever see any more big stimulus coming in. right? But there's one thing that really caught my eye was the whole like you actually can put money. They're gonna give everybody budget. I think it was $200 each and $100 per household to spend within the community. All right, so if you just kind of average out, that will be about 100 million of liquidity that will go into your hawker centers, your retail shops, and whatnot. And personally, I think I would really push for everybody to go and spend their money. It's just the same. It's the same as when the government gave us the Rediscover Singapore, which I have not used.
I haven't. Me too.
Okay, so you know what, guys? We must make it a point to go and use it. Okay,
Yeah.
So because the idea of budgets is that the government has already set the money aside to spend. And if we don't spend it, they're actually failing their criteria, because the goal is to circulate within the economy and make it move. All right. So let's all make it a point to go and spend our Rediscover dollar first.
Yes.
Okay, and share with each other on social media. It's like how we're gonna spend it, right? So get some ideas. Right.
Yeah.
Don't go USS. Don't go. So my take is, I'm trying very hard not to go to the big spaces, because those guys, they have budgets to raise debt and whatnot, right? So they are not. I won't say we're trying to like cordon their business, but they're not as impacted compared to the small little museum, like maybe a toy museum. I think there's a toy museum, or like the local tours where you go to like Little India. Those are operated by super small like SMEs, right? And I think we, from a country level, that's where I'm sure that's where the government hope you spend the money. But it's very hard to fight USS, right? So I would push everybody to kind of spend your money in the local environment, just kind of spur your economy, support our local enterprise, support our auntie uncles downstairs, and the young people that are trying to start their own hawker stores. So that's great.
Yeah.
And the new budget that's going to come out, every house is going to have $200 to spend on. Actually, there's a lot of updates. So you're going to get $200 per household to be able to spend locally, right? So I hope that we can all take the money and spend like locally, right? So go to your bike shop. Like recently, I bought a bike, right? So I was deciding whether do I buy from Decathlon or do I buy from the auntie downstairs, and I decided to go buy from the auntie downstairs, right? So my $300 will not go very far to Decathlon, but it's like they've done so much work to get the experience up, right? So it's so great for you as an experience to go in to spend $300 on a bike in Decathlon compared to going to the auntie downstairs, and they're cleaning up the whole place and it's very dirty. But that will stimulate the economy from a local standpoint, and it's always great to kind of support local businesses. I think over the long run, it's great for all of us. Yeah.
So we'll be getting like the $200, the voucher, on top of the extra $100. That's the CDC voucher, right? For heartland shops and hawker centers.
Yes.
So total 300.
Yes. So your GST. Okay, there's a very interesting phenomenon here, is that you will realize that most of the cash handouts, right, are not very big, because if you think about it from a psychological standpoint, if it gets too big, right, then you will not spend it already. If it's $500, right, you will save it, or you put it in your like robo-advisor, or you invest somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, but it's like not too big, such that you will divert your money elsewhere where they don't want you to put your money in the financial economy. But it's big enough for you to go downstairs and have a great meal at the Tita, or when buy a new bicycle or buy something. So the goal is to get us to spend. And although we are like financial podcasts and we always like talk about prudence, there's this like stereotypical idea of prudence, right? But I think when it comes to this budget, it's like extra ang pao money. Let's just take the money and go and spend, and just kind of let's make it. How about let's make it a thing? Okay, let's make it a thing where we start a hashtag, and if you spend on something, then you kind of like hashtag it, and then everybody knows what you spend on. Right, so that's great, right? Then we get everybody to go and like spend the local economy and spur and all those kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me of sorry. I just want to say that reminds me of I think it's largely different from what's happening in America when they get their stimulus checks. But I have seen people on social media saying like, if you don't need your stimulus check, like $600, I'm not sure how much it is. If you don't need your check, you can just kind of like either pass it along to somebody else who needs it more. That was something that I observed when
Yes.
the American government kind of like gave out the stimulus to the people. Yeah, so I thought that was
Yes.
pretty meaningful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but when it comes to that part, like donating to charity and whatnot, right? I'm a little apprehensive. I think that we need to directly stimulate the economy, right? Like we need to
Yes.
directly spend the money. So go and spend the money, let it circulate. The problem with going through charity is, there's a lot of there's just a lot of loss in the charity ecosystem.
That's true. Yeah, and I think the people that were saying that pass on the stimulus checks, they were trying to direct it not to charities, but to other people. So I think they call it mutual aid,
Yes.
where you directly give it to somebody else. Yeah, instead of like to a charity or an organization. Yeah.
Awesome. And Chuin Ting is on.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. By
Hi.
the way, for everybody that don't know, Chuin Ting is CEO of MoneyOwl at NTUC Social Enterprise. Cool stuff. Welcome on. Thanks for taking time to be with us.
Hi, Reggie. Thanks for having me. And hi, Scott and Sophie, right?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah. So, any interesting things? So we were just kind of having a conversation about the budget and what interesting stuff caught your eyes, and yeah. So we can start there. And for everyone else that's already in, we're gonna start the main conversation. And 5:30, Ben will be coming in, so everything is gonna be real fun. Do share with your friends the link, and we hope to have more people participate in the conversation as we interact with our experts on the team. Yes.
Great things that you're doing here. I think this budget was. I just had a conversation at some senior levels just before in the morning, and one of the sentiments expressed was, "Oh, are we going to be spending a lot out of past reserves more? And what does this mean for the sustainability of, I guess our fiscal strength into the medium to longer term, and how does this affect our future generations?" Yeah. So I thought that was a very interesting angle, because most of the time when we talk about pandemic and we talk about the support that the government gives, is obviously what is needed right now. So it's a bit like, you have maybe someone who has a heart disease, and somebody has a heart attack and needs to be resuscitated right now, right? So that's, in a sense, the current budgets are always about that. And I think we're in a crisis situation. Everyone recognizes that we need to dole out that treatment. However, in the longer term, the numbers are kind of like 53.7 billion for 2020 and 2021 are coming out of past reserves. So we have all that we accumulated so much over the years, and we are drawing on this rainy day fund for the nation. So what does that mean for our children later on? In their generations, as they retire, kind of 30, 40 years, are we keeping up this level of fiscal spending? And then there were talks about having then to raise taxes, and in order to basically shore up our fiscal balanced or balancing the budget in the longer term. Yeah, so I thought that was quite interesting sort of backdrop, and also in the context of the budget, the additional $11 billion of resilience budget that will be given this year.
Yeah. Okay. I think a lot of specificity will keep coming over the next 2 weeks or so, right? More and more ministries will release the details and whatnot. But in that part of the budget about like raising taxes and whatnot, like what are your thoughts about, like, GST is going to come up, and how is it important for us to really bother about that at this moment in time? Okay, because what you're talking about is very high level, right? So it's like central governance, our prudence from a government standpoint. But how does that translate to us as a retail individual on the ground, the day-to-day folk? Why should we be concerned about that in that sense?
Yeah, I think as far as the taxes are concerned, I mean, those of us who pay income taxes, they're saying that actually over 50% of the taxes are paid by 20% of people who are working. I think in Singapore, we are quite used to very low taxes, income taxes, and we have to know that this is going to go up. And taxes is one of those fixed expenses that you do need to budget for. And of course, nobody says I want to earn less money so that I pay less tax, but we do, so that's, but I think we need to be prepared because as much as we all want to do what is necessary, especially for people who are more disadvantaged in this particular economic situation, we have been called to do our part as well. So middle income and high income people will have to be prepared to pay more taxes in the future, and so don't don't plan your lifestyle around the not taking some of that into account. You might effectively have to take, before you buy that big house and all that, don't cut it too thin, because you might actually have some higher fixed expenses in the future, including in the form of taxes.
Cool. Are there some core principles that MoneyOwl was pushing through this period of time? Because I think the narrative going forward is that it's still going to be very hard this year and next year. Right, so you will probably not see a lot of wage increment, or there'll be a lot of artificial wage increment, like the government is going to give a little bit extra support so companies potentially pay a bit more, but it's very artificial, right? So the general theme for the next 2 years is still going to be pretty dampened from an economic standpoint. We're not talking about the financial markets, right? We're talking about the real economy. So are there some themes at MoneyOwl that you guys are pushing hard for the average Singaporeans to recognize?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is some of the boring stuff that we always talk about, which is financial planning. In financial planning, lots of time we focus very much on investments and markets, which is the sexy part, but we actually have very little control over markets, and we can't really outguess markets, try to time markets and all that. But what we can control better is the financial planning part of the short-term equation of our income minus our expenses. And that is really where we should be focusing on, given where the economy is. So given where the economy is, you're right. I think that all wage increases will probably be muted. The exceptions will be in areas where workers have put in a lot more. Of course, if you're in groceries or whatever, that's a good sector to be in. The tech sector is still very much very hot. But this is where we always say that look after your income. The first principle is that your income is always your most important financial asset. For most of us, our income is our most important financial asset, because it is only from income that we can both live our life now as well as to have a surplus to save for the future. So in this time when your income may not be growing as fast, then what should you do? The first thing I think is very important, and this doesn't sound like anything financial, but you really have to be the best at what you do. So Reggie, if you're doing podcast, you're the best at what you do, because then the people who want to use your medium will be coming to you. And for those of us who work in services, be the best at what you do, so that if there's any need for anyone to go, you'll be last on the list. Your boss doesn't want to let you go. And so even if increments are even more incremental than before, you safeguard your job, stay relevant. I think there will always be grants for training and all that during these cases. Make use of those grants, get better and better, and in this economy, pivot to gain those new skills that you need. And then it's about looking after, then also protecting the income to some extent. We always have these principles that are almost evergreen, which is to protect your income with very low cost insurance, right? So that's the income portion. For expenses portion is really, when during stress times like this, take a harder look at what you are spending at. Don't commit to very big ticket items without giving yourself a buffer, because like I said, there are some things that are going on in the economy. You never know when the economic situation might turn against your sector or even yourself. So that's the general principle, is to really safeguard that most important financial asset of income, and then minus your expenses. And this is what you can better control.
Nice. I think it's interesting that you just now you mentioned, we're basically tapping into a rainy day fund, like, for the country, and that makes me think about how we should also pay attention to our own rainy day
Oh, yes,
funds.
yes,
I mean,
yes, of
in
course,
times, yeah, exactly. So in times like these, I think now is the time where when we look at our finances, look at our spending, I think as people on the ground, the average Singaporean, I guess our own emergency funds are also very important. We will never know what will happen.
That's right.
When
Yes.
COVID came, yeah.
So yeah, I think we probably forgot to mention that, maybe because we talk about it so much. But
Yes.
emergency fund is it's a foundation of financial health, actually. Some of these things that I mentioned, Reggie, you asked about the themes that we talk about. So financial health, let's say if you do MoneyOwl's comprehensive planning, we always say financial health is key, it's foundation, right? It's foundation because before you can start doing anything else, you must be able to last the marathon of the financial planning journey of, say, investing. So financial health emergency fund, having 6 to 9 months of expenses. We used to say about 3 to 6, but looking at something like COVID, and depending on you, if you are, say, a business owner, or you might even like to go up to about 12 months, but definitely 6 months of emergency fund is one of the key indicators of financial health. And if you don't have that, then let's not talk about taking risk anywhere else. Get this done right through saving.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting you likened financial planning to a marathon. It can be pretty exhausting, I think intimidating as well, especially for younger Singaporeans. And I think even now, like in light of the pandemic situation, things are moving a bit slower. We're dealing with things like unemployment, trying to get a grip on, I guess, our finances, the way our lives have changed. I guess I want to ask, like, how do we, or like maybe for the younger audience, how do we overcome this like fatigue, I guess, when doing financial planning, especially now? Yeah, in your opinion.
Yeah, actually, financial planning should not take up a lot of your life.
I can't make a laugh. I was like, this is true. Okay, personal experience and a lot of my audience's experiences, a lot of financial planning agencies, not naming names, but they just make it sound like it's everything, right? And day in, day out. So, sometimes we are like, okay, especially from our end, because we do media, right? So sometimes we are super hard on like, hey, what are the listen rates? Why the listen rates came down? But I will tell the team like, hey guys, everybody needs to live a life. They're not trying to like learn personal finance every day. Just give them a break. They're living their life. Anyway, you continue.
Yeah, I mean, so in fact, we should spend as little as possible on such energy sapping things, unless you treat it as entertainment, right? So
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this impression that financial planning can be very stressful because of I think it's a maximization mindset. That kind of like, I need to watch the markets, make sure that I'm getting in at the right time, make sure I'm getting out before everything collapses, and then it becomes very counterproductive. Well, firstly, it's very stressful, and secondly, it doesn't actually work. Trying to time it this and that, and you just have so much of your life sucked up. Now, that is not really a financial planning either. To me, that is it's a bit like financial porn. Saying,
Wait, what was that? What was that?
Don't make her repeat
Okay.
it.
Correct.
Really, because CNBC is a little bit like watching CNBC is a bit like financial porn, really trying to, what are you actually achieving with all that excitement that you are creating, right? So I think
Kramer.
it's highly entertaining, I must say, But yeah, I think life is too short to be spent really on money. Like thinking how best you can how can you maximize your money in the short term, in every short term aspect. I think it really starts from the mindset that finance or money is not an end in itself. So money is an enabler for you to live the life that you want to live, and this involves not being able to have everything, but you need to know what is important to you, and then you can plan towards that. So for us, in fact, we define financial planning at MoneyOwl as being able to reach your life goals no matter what happens, in a comfortable manner. So the comfortable manner is quite important, because if you're very uncomfortable and stressed, you're going to give up at some point, right? You're going to give up because you have say always thinking about the markets. You are stressing out. You are taking the sort of missteps, or you are just being too hard on yourself sometimes in terms of what you do. So I think there's always a balance. And I think the best way to go about it is to do an autopilot. Do up a plan, a comprehensive plan that takes a look at your financial health, take a look at your protection, take a look at your what you might have in be it CPF or whatever, and then you set your savings to an autopilot, through what we call an RSP, which is a regular savings plan in a suitable portfolio, if you're suitable for investing. Take care of your insurance without having to worry about whether you can afford the premiums by choosing the right insurance, and then you're set, right? So then you review it when something changes in your life. You review it when you have, maybe you are getting married or whatever, and then you review it, your financial planner. But in between, no, don't really, go on and live your life with the money you earn.
Yes. Or like now, right? Crisis.
Yeah,
You gotta
that's right.
review it. Yeah. And that I'm observing this trend where there are a lot of people, because of a loss of income or reduction in income, trying to trade the markets or trying to replace their income, with investment income. So, like I sit at a cafe, and then it's like everyone is financial guru these days, like they and their couple sweetheart, they're having coffee and then they're talking about finance. I was like, guy, bro, just chill. Like, you're dating, you're hanging out, So I feel this general anxiety. So I get that. I feel this general anxiety to try to replace their income using investments. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts?
For me?
Oh yeah, of course. You're the
Okay.
expert. Yes, we got you here to share. Yes, good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think in a nutshell, it is very hard to do so, and I think it's actually very high risk in not to think that in the short term you can make enough from the financial markets to consistently to replace your income, because markets go up and down in the short term. We know that in the long run, markets, no matter how bad a crisis, will recover, and stocks do go up in the long run. The logic being that it is about human enterprise, it is about how companies grow and companies fuel earnings on the back of aggregate demand growth. But this does not happen in a straight line. So at any time, it can come down, it can go up, and if whoever thinks that they can do this consistently is probably the luckiest person in the world, or or they're spending a lot of time on it, and even then there is no guarantee. I'll say that in the area of trading, or sometimes people call tactical asset allocation and all these fancy terms that some fund managers use, if you can get something right 60% of the time, you're a winner, right? Because if not, you win more than you lose, then you're done. But most of the time, if you're under a stress situation, you think, I need to make so much, I need to make this for this month, then you end up actually probably getting burnt, because the short-term volatility is just so much, it's just so hard for you to take. And you're actually much better off keeping to a long-term strategy, trying to do that. So I would say that it can also be counterproductive, especially if you think it's going to solve all your problems and you even go all in like a gamble and take leverage. I was just reading an article about GameStop, that people had read about stories about how their debt is cancelled overnight, or and become millionaires even when they're very young, and so people went to borrow money and throw it all into the GameStop, but then market turned already, then they're down 80%, and now they're laden with debt. So it really can happen, because it's just random. It's nothing. The market doesn't have anything against you. It's just that you have taken something to a casino. It has much better odds than a casino, by the way, but it's still sort of probably against you if you're trying to do it consistently. Yeah. So in a word, I think no, we should get rich the slow way, not the fast way.
Yeah, I agree. I was also following what was happening with GameStop, and if you didn't bring it up, I was going to bring it up. because I did read the subreddits quite closely. I just thought it was very interesting. Some people were like, I'm buying into GME because I want to pay off like for a house, or all that stuff. But gosh, I just think it was very volatile, and to put
Yeah.
to like put your hopes in that it's quite dangerous.
Yeah, and it's not just the volatility. I recently wrote an article on it on a website. It's because when you use derivatives like options, there are certain things that are tied to options, which are technicals that affect the ability it's not just about betting on the right direction, right? So if you put something in, the right direction can go up or down in the sense of 50-50, right? But with options, there are other things to it, like the fact that options expire, so there's an inherent leverage. Options have is actually priced on volatility. So before you break even, you actually need the volatility to sort of but basically, the more volatile it is, the more expensive the option is. So you actually like buying like overpriced options. So there's actually a lot of technicalities that probably most people don't really understand. And this is all the delta, gamma stuff and vega,
Right.
theta, right? And they get caught in it. Right? They get caught in it because the technicalities compound the both the gains and the losses. Yeah. But I guess maybe if back to budget, I think if budget or rather COVID has taught us anything in this last 2 years, is really that risk can happen anytime. Things can in the economy that can affect our lives. The different situations can really materialize, and so something really boring like the emergency fund is really very important, because actually how does emergency fund relate to making money in the markets? If you do not have an emergency fund, then when something happens, you need to take that time to replace your expenses so that you can continue living a lifestyle. If you don't have an emergency fund, you actually have to draw down your investments. Now, if the investments are at a low at the time, you actually realize your loss, and you can't capture that recovery and the long-term return on market. So you sort of get a double whammy in that sense. So I think this is something that COVID has really taught us, that we do really need to have the emergency fund, even if emergencies don't look like they're coming until they come. Right? That's how emergencies are. Yeah.
Right. Just to kind of circle back on something you were talking about options. I think for those who are a bit less experienced, could you give us a quick definition of options?
Cannot lah. So
It's about
Why?
budget.
very complex one. That one very complex.
Okay.
Yes. We talk another day. Okay, if you guys are super interested in learn derivatives, we will bring on guests to focus on derivatives on another day. Okay, so just shout out if you're super interested. But today we focus on the budget. All right. So
Thanks for keeping me on track.
yeah, keeping it on track. Yes, and I think there's a lot of money going into the greener, the whole sustainable thing. And like whether is it the green plan or whether is it like our seawalls, environments. Do you have any thoughts on that? And along the lines of like ESG investing, because I know it's becoming a thing, right? And then Singapore government is like pushing it even on the ground from the economy or infrastructure standpoint. So Chuin Ting, to you, what are some thoughts about the whole ESG investing thing, and how is this whole like government effort to put into green money? How can we leverage on that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, ESG investing, in fact, has come up quite a bit, and increasingly we find fund managers having to incorporate ESG either into the investment process or at least into in some form of having a product to do ESG. So just now during the budget, it was announced that the government will be issuing Singapore green bonds. I think the first tranche is about $19 billion, and the overall size of the facility is $90 billion. So this is the first time that the government is issuing infrastructure financing bonds. So I guess what's happening is that they're doing some of those big projects that you might have mentioned, and in order to finance those projects, they're issuing some of these bonds. I do think though that it's not so much about needing the money to finance those projects. I think it's more about developing the whole Singapore to be a hub for everything that is eco. Because we can be the leader in this relatively new area for the region. So in ESG investing, then the first thing about this Singapore green bonds and infrastructure financing is a new instrument for Singaporeans, and I think that is very interesting. So I'll definitely be interested to take a look at it. And I guess where like all bonds are concerned, especially if they're issued by the Singapore government, I expect that the risk level in this case, we have to look at it. It's in other countries, it is quite, I think it's quite common. So in the US, you will have certain municipal issuing bonds on certain infrastructure, certain projects, and it's like a project financing. We had to look and see whether it is tied to the success of the project, or is it also underwritten by the government, and if so, then of course the yields are tied to it. Yeah. So that's one area, and I think that there are people who invest in the green bonds will probably be doing so out of a conviction that they want to support these projects, and also to see they're contributing towards something that they can see, and at the same time earning some kind of return on it. I think that whether or not it can fully replace things in your portfolio really depends on the size, because it may not have so much accessibility or liquidity, but it is still early days yet, so it remains to be seen. Yeah. On ESG investing, then I think we can't ignore the trend that the world over we are looking into that. There are a few variants of ESG investing. One is a kind of negative positive list kind of thing. Like I don't invest in companies that do anything that carbon positive, meaning that they add to the carbon emissions, for example. It can be basically a no bad company list. That's how we are investing it. Yeah. So but it's a bit hard because there are a lot of things that like kind of gray, right? So then people start to look into it and see, does this big company actually also do source from sustainable sources, and then the whole value chain is there. Then there are others where they incorporate it into their funds, the actual company selection. So they actually look into each company, and they might use an ESG score or something like that. So I think from a financial advisor's point of view, it's really that the ESG investing, can we really promise higher return from ESG investing compared to sort of normal globally diversified portfolio? I think the answer is not so clear. In theory, it should be that way, because companies that are more sustainable should be able to do better over the long run, as they take into account the new like environmental stresses and social stresses there. But I think we cannot be too overly naive to think that it's always the case and it's always so in every time frame. Then the issue is that if these investments underperform the broad market, will investors accept that? Accept that as part of a potential cost or trade-off for ESG investing. I know there are some investors who refuse to believe that there's a trade-off, and I think they're right in the sort of long run, but they may not be right in, say, every 10-year time frame or every 15-year time frame. And so we don't really have that much evidence to prove one way or another. I think bottom line is that even if we do have an ESG fund, let's say at MoneyOwl, we would want it to be very diversified, globally diversified funds or companies, so that we don't put too much of our eggs in one basket. And this is a basic tenet of asset allocation and of investing in general.
Right. That really, the whole talk about ESG investing is interesting to me, and I hope it's interesting to everyone else also. It also reminds me of like you mentioned, ESG investing options. They are like, some of them are graded by a certain ESG score or something like that, right? Yeah. It reminds me of how, like, I don't know if MoneyOwl has delved into something like Islamic finance. But even then, we have come across some pretty interesting things, like how Tesla is, constantly in and out. Is it considered halal or not? Stuff like that. And it seems to always be in flux.
Wait, did someone try to halalize Tesla?
It's just like it's being discussed constantly. Like some people say
Really?
Tesla is halal, Tesla is not halal.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, really,
So
it's quite
much noise
interesting.
around Tesla, huh? Yeah.
and Tesla recently, they poured money into Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy.
That was
Anyway,
it, yeah.
Ben is in. Welcome, Ben. So he's the founder of Kinobi.Asia, one of the leading mentoring platforms in Singapore, and I think they've expanded really fast, like within the region, India, Indonesia, quite a few places. So do you want to introduce yourself, Ben?
Yeah, thanks so much, Reggie. Hi everyone,
Yeah.
my name is Ben. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kinobi. Yeah, so it has been quite a journey for us. I would say that in a sense, everyone is really looking for career advice right now. It's a tumultuous period, especially so with COVID. People are uncertain and everyone wants answers in some ways. So I think that has accelerated our growth across Asia. We have found that every student in Singapore, or whether you're in Indonesia, or whether you're in like Thailand or Philippines or India, we are all searching for the same things. So yeah, so happy to meet everyone.
Yeah, cool stuff. By the way, Chuin Ting is here, CEO of MoneyOwl. This Ben and his Sope is from the Simple Sum. So we
Hi.
are full house in, right? So everyone that
Hey,
was
Chuin.
stipulated
Hey,
to
Sope.
come in, it's in. So that's good. By the way, I just want to give a shout out that if you guys are listening, and we're gonna go into the career discussion together with Chuin Ting and Ben, based on what the budget is out and what are some of the trends out there. So feel free to share this with your friends and just kind of want to do it as a check-in to make sure we reach more people. So yeah. Did Ben just jump out?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, he's back.
Sorry,
Okay, he's back. He's back.
I'm still trying
Okay,
to use this app. Yeah.
dude, we're
I
all
realized that
figuring out.
Yeah, it's so new to us.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all figuring out. So yes. So any thoughts on like what is the career trends now in the market? And based on the budget, what are we looking at?
Right. So I think I come from an economist standpoint. So I during the entire circuit breaker, I wrote several articles on like how career trends are actually going. You'd find that it's probably something which is quite easy for everyone to understand, right? So a lot of these GDP growth is driven a lot by B2C, meaning that the consumer at the end of the day dictates a lot of the value and dictates the GDP in some sense. So if you look at it from the macro perspective of macroecons and tie it back to microecons, a bit of economics class here, but make it simple for everyone, is that right now you see that certain goods and services such as airlines, hotels, they are not doing and performing as well. So of course, like these companies, they get impacted, they do not hire as much, they probably can't sustain the jobs there. But at the same time, you find that the flip side occurs, which is that you have a lot of these tech companies that provide services that actually augment the experience or replace that physical experience. They seem to be going up, right? So everyone has the 24 hours in a day, right? How do you use to spend the time? Maybe in the past, you might actually go on holidays, things like that. So right now, apart from staycations, you spend more time on, let's say, on social media. People are using TikTok more than ever. People are playing games more than ever. And so that means that you have new services actually filling this gap. And when that happens, when they have more revenue, they hire more people. So I think looking at from the macro to micro perspective, this is quite a good way to actually see which companies are hiring, which companies not. These are where perhaps a very layman understanding of where the career trends are going.
Right. Thanks for sharing. I think in the budget announcement as well, our finance minister also mentioned that employment landscape is changing. We're going towards more of a digital environment. Now we're all getting used to working from home, and I think he also mentioned soon we can transit towards working from anywhere. What's your perspective, I guess, for people who are looking for jobs? Should they start looking for opportunities overseas?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So actually, for myself, we have hired 6 Indonesian interns, right? I've never met any of them in my life before. Yeah, I mean, I've gone to Jakarta quite often. I just have not met any of them, but we hired
Right.
them. They're working for us for like 3 to 4 months. They're part of the team. They feel part of the family. And the only thing I've seen them on is Zoom. Right, it's a really new world that we are living in. I think the two things that actually occur is, one is that your job is a risk. I think that's something which is a concern, especially so for Singaporeans. I mean, the government could protect your jobs as much as possible. They can do job wages, supplement, and things like that, right? So that's something which is possible. But I think what COVID-19 has really changed is that, and you see Spotify has been giving people across the globe, letting people work from home and giving them New York and San Francisco salaries. So that's something which is not heard of. You can have a person who is an expat working in their home country, not being in London, but yet drawing London pay, right? So these are things that you don't see back in those times. But then this rises up to a new entire tension that I think, as I'm not a government official, not a civil servant, but this is where, if I'm a government economist, I'll be thinking about, right, how do I solve this main issue? Because it is not just economics anymore. It comes down to other things, right? Like nationalism. It comes down to where you're born. Should we give more preferential treatment to, let's say, people who have stayed here more versus others? And that creates certain sentiments that might not actually be good if we do not handle it carefully, because it hits our wallets, right? And anything that hits your wallet, you definitely you definitely cry out. You definitely be affected by it the most. So I think that's the first thing that we actually see. The second is that it's a good thing for Singaporeans. I think looking at that perspective, why not, a Singaporean actually think about working overseas, but yet stay in Singapore? I think there's so much opportunity that we can actually do. I mean, if other people are doing the same to Singapore, why can't Singaporeans actually do the same, right? Why can't we actually find jobs that are outside and therefore, show that, like, hey, we are quite good people who actually are not only just innovative, we get things done, and we can draw maybe in our country's pay, right? So these are just some ideas that I had in mind.
Right. I would think, with more global opportunities, the competition will be tougher, lah. So I guess it's also easier said than done. Like for a Singaporean
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that part about like trying to get job abroad, right? I think there are some realities in terms of trying to plan your finances also when you're in such a scenario, right? That means you're not essentially hired locally, and you have these kind of like mobile lodging. You can lodge anywhere, you can do it anywhere, right? So financially, I don't know, Chuin Ting, do you have some thoughts on this, like working remote and managing your finances in a remote setting, not traditionally the whole CPF kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that if you're a Singaporean working overseas, then one of the first things is about, say, tax, for example, right? So there will be tax regimes that you need to think about, and you probably want to look into that. And the pension systems in different countries will be different. So it depends a lot whether your employer contributes something, and then if they don't, then actually what you need to do is to be quite disciplined about saving that for yourself. So do take into account when you're looking at wages and all that. It's not just a headline number, but it's also things like employer CPF contribution equivalents and all that, if you're doing a comparison. So for that, then really it's important to set a certain plan on autopilot, and there's you can actually contribute to your CPF by yourself as in a kind of voluntary manner, and you might want to do so in such situations to make use of the national scheme. But of course, I'll be aware that whatever you put in cannot suck up. CPF is great. CPF is great, except don't suck up all your liquidity. And I think in the context of COVID, I think it's important to also maybe say that, because financial planners in Singapore, especially those of us who really want to incorporate the best of national schemes, is like MoneyOwl. We sometimes tend to be like very say, oh, CPF is great and it's true, but we had to be very clear that it is a one-way street, right? So during time like COVID and all that kind of thing, just be be sure what you are putting away as liquidity. So we talked about emergency fund just now, right? So I think emergency fund is just is even more important during this time. Don't go and use all your emergency to stop CPF, and asking you to use your CPF to invest as well. That I think you can do that if you have a long-term horizon. But again, if there's any risk of you losing your job and needing that to pay your mortgage, then please don't do that. Now, for working overseas, I was just reminiscing. I was just thinking about it because in my younger days, without before kids and all that, right? I did think about it in the context of an overseas posting, and there are things that financially it can work out quite well for you. For example, if you rent out your place here, right, then you go overseas, so you get a certain like different streams of income that come with that. But if you are very clear you're coming back to Singapore, then you do need to make sure that you have some bases in Singapore covered. So, for example, buy your integrated shield plan in Singapore anyway. I think it's worthwhile paying for that before your health goes wonky, because you never know what can happen, so that when you do come back, if anything happens to you, you at least have that healthcare expectation being able to be fulfilled through your shield plan. So we do know people who have gone overseas, and they think that because when they're overseas, they don't need the coverage, right? And then they don't take care of their protection shield plan back home. So I think that's probably a mistake that they need to avoid. So I think there are different aspects of it, and of course the currency in which you save and all that. It's probably best that if it's something for your retirement, you put aside something that is still in Singapore dollars, rather than just
home currency.
Some of it, at least.
Bring the money back, right? Manage your foreign exchange rate risk, right? So
Yes.
on that topic of working abroad and whatnot, right? I think the government in this budget has released a lot of money in terms of going into certain growth sectors, right? So we have kind of moved away from trying to dampen the impact from last year's situation, where we try to dampen. Okay, I said it like I'm the government. No, where the government try to dampen the impact in terms of some of the hard-hitting sectors, and then now you see a lot of money going into investing in the new growth sectors like the green sector, the tech sector, the VC sector. So question for Benjamin, right? Like for some people that are trying to transit their career, so maybe previously they were not in this space, right? But everybody wants to be in the growth space so that they can ride the waves. So what are some things that we can do and we can look out for to try to leverage that transition and go in smoothly and trying to ride this thing?
Right. Well, one thing you can do is to sign up for Kinobi.
Hey, next time I must make sure we say no shameless plug. But anyway, okay, let's go ahead.
Yeah, he took the shot, man. He took the shot.
Took the shot. Totally took the shot. Awesome.
Yeah, it's an ultimate belief in my product, right? So
yes.
Yeah, so I think what is important is to really build skill sets. Two portions, right? One is, I studied 1 year of law before I realized that law wasn't my thing. But what I took away from it is there's this thing called substance and form, right? So one is the substance. Substance means skill sets. Of course, skills are those soft skills, which is the form. But then that's where you actually learn how to really understand what is a product. I think looking at something a bit more philosophical as a concept, as a product itself, there's something that you can actually work on, right? Because everything as a product, whether you are selling an insurance product, whether you're selling an investment product, whether you're selling a physical product, right? Whether it's a plant, or whether you're selling maybe some confectionery or things like that. So these are things that helps you to understand more about what are you selling, right? What is exactly like when you want to join this company, what is the company selling? Every company is making revenue something. What is it that you're selling? Right? I think many people don't understand and don't have the skill sets to really think about the business kind of way, which is that what exactly am I selling? And when you think about it from that framework itself, then the other quote unquote skill sets come inside. I think there are too many people who actually focus on trying to rack up certificates. To me, certificates are great. It shows that you are someone who understands, and you may have a certain qualification in this. But then everyone has that, right? So how do you really stand out? To me, it's we live in I guess being born in Singapore, being educated in Singapore, people just tend to think that, if I get a certain grade, that's it, right? That's like university. But then that's not so, because having that grade or having that certificate doesn't really guarantee anything. Instead, what you have to do is to really think of a broad framework. Like, what exactly is this company that you want to join selling, right? Or these industries that you want to join, what are they doing? And from there, you find out what type of skill sets do I need to get myself there, right? It could be that today you want to join maybe Google, for example. And Google is notoriously difficult to get inside, but it doesn't mean that you can never ever try. You can always not just, you don't have to apply first, right? You can also apply for other companies first. Maybe join a Series A, Series B startup, and then work your way up, eventually go there. And then you ask yourself, like, what are certain companies that are similar to Google? What are certain companies that also sell tech solutions? What are these tech solutions even? What are the products that they sell, right? How do people actually sell them? And therefore, thinking on that perspective, what type of certificates do I need to actually get there? So I think that is essentially how I would actually look at things, versus just hunkering after every certificate out there. Yeah. So
Yes, and
that's just
I'm
my
also
2 cents on this subject.
cool stuff, and I'm super big on like joining a smaller startup in that sense, right? Series A, Series B startups are honestly, guys, they are desperate for talent. They want good people, but they don't really have the budget to compete with the big boys, right? So if you are at a certain capacity, you should join them and just kind of build your repertoire, and eventually you kind of transit to the bigger companies, right? And is that what I'm hearing? Am I accurate that way, Ben?
Yeah, you're right. So actually, a lot of people think that Series B startups are very risky. But coming from the investments background, a Series B startup usually has around maybe 20 million that has really been invested inside at that round itself, right? So like to give an example, Hamlet is a Series B startup actually. Nobody would think that it's a Series B startup, but everyone knows Hamlet, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I know. I want to interview them. Josh, very
Yeah.
busy, but yes, just say. Continue.
I don't know who's Josh, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, the investor guy. Anyway, yes, continue. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. So these are places that you should consider. Anyway, these companies are ones that are growing, right, rapidly during this period of time. They're the ones who are not archaic. They're the ones who actually help you with fast growth. You work much harder, maybe you get paid a bit lesser. But I think at the end of the day, it works out at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree about building skills. And so, just now before you came on, Ben, you're talking about what is it about financial planning in a difficult time. And I started talking about income and how that is our most important financial asset for most people. And this thing that's actually totally nothing to do with financial planning, which is being the best at what you do and staying relevant. So whether you're an employee or you at some point become a business owner, I think it's really, really very important to be at the top of your game. And the skills that you learn, some of it you learn in an academic setting as a basic training of the mind, like kind of analytical stuff, communication skills and all that. But to really go beyond that, you really have to have that constant growth mindset and about learning about various things. I think sometimes we have a lot of self-limiting beliefs that maybe it's in Singapore, but you say that, oh, I'm a kind of science person, I don't know how to write. I'm a arts person, I don't know how to count. So and that's one thing I realized having sort of studied overseas, and that it's not very not everyone pigeonholes themselves in this way, and we probably should not pigeonhole ourselves like that, but we can always learn. So like you are an entrepreneur now, but you learn about law, and all these stay with you, right? All these things are skills and knowledge, and even disciplines or habits of learning that stay with you and really put you in the right spot for the right opportunity when it comes along.
Yeah, totally agree. Right. I think one of the main gripes that I have about Singaporeans is that they are not hardworking enough.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really
sorry, I don't know whether
I was like, reflex.
Let's rewind.
Yes.
Oh, you talked about it just now. Okay.
No. Let's go there. Let's go.
Okay, I'm going to get into big trouble with my staff because they'll think that I'm talking about them.
Oh.
No,
I
but
think my staff are quite working, so I have no complaints. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, no, sorry, I just wanted to ask, like, oh, Ben, do you want to elaborate on what you said?
yeah.
Sure. Of course, okay. Yeah, I mean, okay, so like, I think, you know, okay, so like this comes from the fact that, you know, I've worked across quite different jurisdictions as well. Okay, let's compare ourselves to Korea, for example, right? I think Korea is crazy. Like every Korean wants to leave Korea. Like literally, if I set up a shop in Korea right now, honestly, my demand would be crazy. The only thing is I don't know how to speak Korean, and like I need to translate my entire platform to Korean. Right? So that's the only thing that's stopping me right now. But then, like you look at Korea, right? Like they will have their jjajangmyms and stuff like that. You need to like they stay until 11 p.m. And then you have to stay until 11 p.m. Then, even though they are basically, you know, doing a lot of meetings. I mean, bosses, some of them, they mostly do meetings, right? And they're not really the ones like doing most of the Excel spreadsheets and so on. But then you as a person, maybe you're just doing Excel spreadsheets and you're not involved and you're just like staying to 11 p.m. just because you have to, because of FaceTime, and you can't leave when your boss leaves. But I think the kind of efficiency we don't have in here in Singapore in some ways. I think things are changing. But at the same time, I feel that you know, there's a lot of students here who are not driven enough. We just think that, you know, like once you get to like a certain college, a certain junior college or a certain university, and you get a certain job, you're set for life, right? In some ways, it's true. I mean, the public service does foster such a mindset. I mean, willingly or unwillingly, it does, right? And in some ways, I think that this actually dampens some productivity that we have, because people think that, hey, I need to just show up, I need to just show that I'm doing work, but then actually is real work being done, is OKR being met, right? So all these things are things that I think most students and most Singaporeans don't really think about, and they don't have the ownership mindset. I feel that like it's very hard to honestly find people ownership mindset. Even at Kinobi right now, I'm quite blessed to have all my interns here which have high ownership. Like I wouldn't have hired them if they don't. And it's just really hard to find. Like really, like it's. I think most of you here who are either business owners or managers, you definitely understand this.
Mm. Oh.
Yes, but by the way, I just want to give a shout out. If you guys have any questions, you can just raise your hands.
I just wanted to, yeah.
Yes. Go ahead. Yes. So.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I think the connection is a bit. Give me a second.
Yeah, you don't need to raise your hand. You can just say.
Sorry, I think I'm lagging.
No, you're good. You're good. I hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to to ask. I mean, Ben, you talked about like, you know, in Korea the culture is that juniors stay like till 11 p.m. when their bosses are still around. How do you like? I mean, the word that came to my mind when you were talking about it was burnout.
Burnout.
You know, yeah. How do you like? I mean, yes, we want to have an ownership mindset, but like we also need to, I think, strike a balance and not kind of like run ourselves ragged, right? So, what's your perspective on that? Like, yeah.
Right. Understand. I think in that perspective, one is that okay, this is my belief. I believe that work takes up a lot of your time. Even if you don't like it, work takes up 8 hours of a day, right? Like it's 1/3 of your day. Technically, if you include other things, it's more than 1/3 already. But it's just 1/3 of a day, right? It's only 1/3 of your life as well, in some ways. And I think that because it's going to be that hard and it's going to be that long, why not find things that you not that you enjoy? You don't enjoy everything, but then why not find things that you're passionate about? And maybe you don't have to be like really probably passionate about it, but then it's something that means your ikigai. Yeah, so for like a lot of Kinobi's like coaches and coaches, right? We use the ikigai framework to start everyone off, and that's something which I feel is very important because it really helps define and creates the ownership. So defining burnout, then everyone definitely face burnout. I mean, you as even a very passionate person, you might be a really good pianist and you really enjoy piano, but then when it comes to life, you hate piano, right? There's something like that. But then, and you definitely will face burnout. But then, how do you actually tackle that? And even so, for anyone else, is to really redefine that, go back and say, why am I here for? Like, what is my purpose here? And I think that if that purpose is diminished in some ways, I think why stay? Why actually not change something else? And in that note, I don't have a straight answer, but then that's where you see that a lot of people start changing jobs very fast, right? So you see that right now in the market, people's average time spent in job is like in one job or one company is like 3 to 5 years. And I do see that decreasing actually, because people just get more demanding. It's much harder for, I think, leaders to manage as well. But then again, yeah, no quick answers as well. I don't have a silver bullet for this. It's just
That's
the
fair,
trends
yeah.
that we actually see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I totally get that. I also want to shout out to my team. I think we're all working very hard, so that's good stuff. But yeah, on on the topic of the budget, right? So in this budget, I think we are definitely seeing a lot of money going to transiting. From an economic standpoint, rather than holding on to the older stuff, right? So I want to open the floor to anybody that has questions about changing your career, or about any particular things in the personal finance space, because like I said, again, we're not here to try to critique the budget, because that makes no sense for many of us. But if you have certain queries and things that you want to talk about, then feel free to come on, and we can have a deeper discussion of how the budget can realize our lives, and how do we leverage on some of these things. And if we can collate some sort of list, we can always feedback to the government. Yes. So while we're waiting for questions to come in, yeah, I just want to point out about the different sectors that we're trying to grow. So in terms of the sector, of course, it's the tech space, right? So I think a question to Ben is about, must everybody that join the tech space be like coder and whatnot, right? And if I am not like a coder, then how do I participate in this space?
Right, a great question. Maybe shout out to Melvin and Chun Hao. Yeah, I realized that both of you in the room. Yeah,
Cool,
thanks
yo guys. Thanks
yeah,
for
cool.
supporting. Yeah.
Yeah, so tech space wise, actually not everyone is a coder. The two main jobs that I would like to highlight, one is a product manager. They are like, so the product manager in short, what they do is that they are cross between between the sales team as well as the engineering team. So it's actually quite a tedious, tough job, but I think the bar is pretty high to actually really understand what's going on within a business and so on. But I think what's very interesting about this job is that you actually are in a way a mini CEO of like this product that the company has. So let's take, for example, Shopee, right? So Shopee itself has Shopee Mall. Shopee Mall itself is a product of Shopee. There's a product managers running Shopee Mall. They are like the mini CEOs of that. They define what the features are and find out what people want, right? So at Shopee Mall, what do people want? What do users actually want? And then understanding that, communicating that with the software engineering team to build the functions within the app to actually make it happen. So for example, it could be that like before this, they created the Shopee coins, right? There was no Shopee coins in like 2017. How do people actually find out? The product managers actually test it out, define it, talk to the business guys, find out whether it's technologically feasible for this, and then talk to the software engineers. So that's like a role that doesn't require you to code, but it requires you to understand the both mindsets, right? And put it in a short way. The second one to highlight is called tech sales. Unfortunately, sales is something which I find that a lot of Singaporeans don't like to do. Yeah, like it's something which is actually pretty lucrative, but then I think it requires a lot of training in order to sell and talk on the fly, right? So, and then come up with objections, handle objections, be knocked back. Everyone's going to say no to you 90% of the time. Not many Singaporeans can take no. Really, I mean, like every day people say no to you, not many people can take it. Yeah, so, but it's actually a really lucrative job, and it's actually something which a lot of these tech firms, like let's quote like Google, HubSpot, Twilio, even ByteDance, they're even hiring right now in these spaces because they just need people within the space to sell to their own countrymen, right? So I cannot have an expat selling to a Singaporean. It doesn't make sense. Like the expat cannot say the laws. They cannot talk Singlish. They cannot go to coffee shop and drink kopi, right? It's just different. Same as if you were in another country like Indonesia, for example, they would hire a tech salesperson who is local because of what the nature of job is. So I think these are two areas that if you want to go into tech, you can actually seriously consider joining. And yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
so maybe
lucrative
if I
jobs.
Yeah, then thanks for that. So maybe I can just chime in, not so much as a financial advisor, but as a bionic financial advisor, because as you know, MoneyOwl is also fintech. So we have a platform. Actually, we have 4 platforms where we do various things, and uh, we have our human advisors, and we also have our tech team. And our tech team is probably the second largest, if not the largest department alongside advisory, and it's a very interesting space in technology, and it's not everyone needs to code. I don't code, and in fact, my CTO at this point does not code either, right? So the main part is the understanding of the business, and then the product manager is a very important role, and the product manager is like front office role, right? Like Ben says, actually conceptualizes and designs and dreams up things that we may not be able to dream up of if you were just doing the coding. In fact, that there is that separation of the different roles within there. So I find it a generalist skill. It is a very it's not easy because you really need to understand the product and or the service. In the case of MoneyOwl, it's very difficult because we actually financial planning, all that is not easy in itself. There's of course on the marketing side as well. There is also the digital marketing. Now marketing has to be sort of holistic and integrated, and not just traditional, above the line media and all that. So there are various roles. I mean, in a full-fledged technology team, the product manager design is very important as well. Then there's understanding of how to use different tech tools in order to give, I guess, instructions also to the technology teams. Then of course there's actually a whole technology management of teams both onshore and offshore. And so not everyone needs to be a coder, but I think you need to have that sense and understanding of how a product works, and a lot of it comes from this area called, I guess you call it CX, kind of client experience, understanding the whole client journey, how it speaks to them. There's a design thinking, there's user user research and all that. So it's something I'm learning every day. But definitely in great demand. But ultimately, it is about your willingness to learn that, and also some aptitude, to be able to do that product management role.
Thanks for sharing. I agree. Also, I just want to say that you really don't have to specifically be a coder to be able to join a startup, because that is actually how I sort of pivoted from my very first job to getting into digital marketing, copywriting, and stuff. I went from my first job to a startup because I didn't have a relevant portfolio to become a copywriter, but the startup it really they took a chance on me lah, and that's basically how I essentially got my job at the Simple Sum. So but I have a question about pivoting from one sector to another. If you don't really have transferable skills, I think this question is for Ben. If you don't really have transferable skills to kind of ease your transition, do you have any advice? Should people just look for another sector to pivot to where they can use their existing skill sets?
Right, it's a great question actually. This is something that I would say that it's all about the story. This is where the form comes inside. So it's not all about the substance and stuff like that. No, it's really about the form, right? Really, everything in life is about sales. Is my belief. I mean, every day I'm trying to close something. Even when I go out eat with my wife, it's not a sales process, but then if I want to eat char kway teow and she wants to eat Hokkien mee, I mean then it depends, right? It depends on maybe I weigh the benefits or whether I'll sit on the couch or not, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, every day is about trying to give the points and make it salient of why you should be hired, or what are the kind of points that you actually have as a person, right? So if I'm in a position, there are a few things that I'll consider. One is that I will talk about my CCAs when I was young. The reason being that a lot of the co-curricular activities that you do when you're young are basically things that actually show up in terms of your characteristics when you join a company. So like, what were you as a person? You know, you don't have to be a leader, right? Honestly, not everyone's a leader, and leaders are overrated sometimes. What do you actually do? Do you help to organize this? What was the objective key result? I think that, you know, if you show everything in an objective key result thing, it's very clear to people that, hey, you know, you did this, and therefore this is something that's pretty cool, and therefore it makes me want to hire you, right? So, and then it goes back down to the resumes, which a lot of people have, and a lot of people just write resumes. They don't really list out and put a number to things. But I think putting a number to things actually makes people believe you more and makes your story more believable. I like to give this quote. So like, you know, like you can say I'm a very good high jumper, right? Then people are like, oh yeah, okay, a very good high jumper. But then if I say that, you know, I'm a good high jumper, I can jump 2.3 meters. You're like, wow, okay, this guy is really not that, right? But then after that, you can actually quantify even more and say that I'm a good high jumper. I can jump 2.3 meters, which is 20 cm higher than the second person right after me. Right? They're like, wow, okay, amazing. You know, this guy can really jump, and he's excellent, right? So I think putting into things perspective is something which is like extremely important. So if you can showcase that, hey, I have project management skills. This is something I did when I was in school. I managed this project. How did I manage it? What are the conflicts I faced? How did I resolve it? And how did I meet the objective and get this key result that I had? Then the likelihood of you getting hired and people taking a chance on you is much higher. So barring aside all the, you know, certificates, things that you learn and stuff like that, this convinces the person that, hey, you know, this person is willing to learn. He has high ownership. I think if I were to give him a new kind of role, he will do well. And then again, some people always ask like, what makes you so sure, right? Like, you know, why don't you need a certificate and stuff like that? Then if that was the case, I'll usually counter back with the statement that honestly, 3 years ago, nobody knew that there would be this thing called a TikTok social media manager. Right? Like honestly, nobody knew that.
Yeah,
TikTok is so new.
we just had a conversation with the TikTok manager, just saying,
Nice.
about content, because they want to push for intellectual content on that space. So yeah, that is a thing. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't ever like discount a person just because he doesn't have, you know, quote unquote, the hard skills, right?
Yeah, that's true. Benjy, do you have anything?
Okay, I think we have talked about a lot of pointers. I actually have some thoughts about like creating like more events along this, like continue to break it down, more focused discussions the next few rounds. Like I think ESG discussion is lacking. There's definitely a lot of room to discuss. So I'm gonna open up to the floor and Chuin Ting next time to come on again to talk about ESG, and we'll get other people to come along also. And I think career transition, especially in the tech space, is also under discussed with non-tech and whatnot. So we'll get Ben again and maybe some other guys in the space and talk about green bonds. And next week we may have a freelancer discussion together with Nicholas Chi and those guys. So yeah, I think we've covered a lot today, and more of the information within the budget will keep coming out, as we go along, right? So I don't want to kind of just continue talking and not focus on the budget. So I think we've talked enough. Does anyone have any last pointers about the budget? For me, I'm gonna sum up my viewpoint is that the budget is really for transition. It's so if you are slow to transit, right, that means you have been so comfortable with whatever you're doing for so long, and you feel like, oh, the government give you money and you continue to kind of hang out in the same space, then maybe it's really a good time to recognize that, hey, this is the last leg. There will be no more support next year. And if you're not going to transit into another career or kind of reshape your finances, downsize, or all those kind of stuff, then you may be a little bit late to the game, because that is the signal that I'm getting from the budget. Right, so does everyone else want to give the last words of what you think of the budget and your relevant field, some advice for the audience? Chuin Ting, Ben. Wait, am I lagging?
No.
No, not lagging. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Sure. I can start this. I think that, I mean, going back to the budget, I didn't really think much of budget actually, but then I think the focus on the 5.4 billion actually supporting jobs is a very crucial point. I think that honestly it is the reason why I think I mean, I'm a huge critic of the government, but I really think that this is where the government really shines compared to where others have failed. And I'm quite glad to be Singaporean in some ways because of this. Because I know that whatever it is, there's this mechanism is it allows people to really work for the job and yet still have the support, right? So I think that's one thing which I'm quite glad for.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ben on that. I think that for us as individuals, resilience is as much a matter of mindset as it is about the sort of hard things in life. And so on the personal finance side, I mean, in terms of our personal lives, one way or another, I think we have all been affected. Uh, with the way we work, or in health situations of our loved ones, or just the whole, not being able to travel and all that. So I think that we have to. It's a good time for us to take a look whether or not we are financially stressed at our expenses, our lifestyles, and we might find that during this time, as things are being stripped away, that we can try to declutter our lives and keep them more simple and really ask what is important to us. And alongside with that, then, we realize that hey, actually maybe some things we can live without. And so we build up then our personal surpluses on the financial side, but also how we spend our energies. We talked a little bit about how not to spend too much energy on trying to make money in the stock market, and things like that, and what is important to us. And so having that resilience and then taking the steps necessary in order to safeguard both our financial resilience as well as our holistic well-being in this time, and leveraging on the sort of support and buffers that the government has given to us. So whether or not we are under financial stress, because whether or not we have lost our jobs, I think we really should take a hard look and try to simplify and declutter our lives, especially on expenses. We should still try to train and remain relevant and have that positive mindset to make good use of the time like this to grow and find really purposeful activities, a purposeful job, and a purposeful way of living out our goals, and then having everything else being enablers to do that, including money.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially on the point about now being the time to kind of take a look at everything, especially after last year. A lot of things have changed for us, and one thing that kind of stuck out to me was like, when finance minister said, like, we're extending the hiring window, by 7 months up until September this year. I think, if there is a time to think about making a change, to pivot, to transition, I guess now is the time. Yeah, so that's what I got, from the budget announcement. There was a lot being shared about what's upcoming and stuff, but this point in particular stood out to me. Yeah.
For sure, guys. I think there are a lot of good points, and we'll continue to develop this over the next few weeks. We'll do more and more sub-topics. I think it was a great discussion. So definitely you will hear more Clubhouse discussions from us. Final opening. Is there any questions on the floor? Please raise your hands if you have. If not, I just want to make it a point that if you're struggling with your personal finance, you're not alone. Things are getting messy. But if you are, take this time to kind of challenge yourself and try something different, right? Because I think a lot of people just want things to be the same, so they will try to invest in the market to make up for the income loss. They will take on very easy jobs like doing Grab or like safe social distancing ambassador, all those kind of stuff. Okay, I get it. If you're financially strained, you got to do that to just kind of tentatively stay intact, but it's not going to give you a lot of upside benefit in the longer term, right? So you want to go and pick up a skill, join a high growing industry, and go and get some rigor in all these new spaces, and then you will ride back much better in the time to come. Okay, final words. Anyone? Any questions? If no questions, then shall we call it a day, guys? I think we had a very good discussion. Everything will be it's recorded, and we will publish it at least on the Financial Coconut see whether Sope want to publish on Simple Sum. We'll confirm everything again. And if you have any questions for us, you can drop. Okay, how about just close up? Where can they find you guys?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, Chuin Ting first.
Oh, to find me, you can find me on Facebook, or you can email me at my name with a hyphen in between. So Chuin-Ting at moneyhour.com.sg.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ben?
Right. You can find me on Instagram, or like I don't really use Facebook anymore. It became more of a Gen Z.
Yeah, I'm totally feeling you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I do post from time to time when I want to engage. My parents. Yeah. So
Yeah, totally get that.
You can find me on Instagram. It's same as my clubhouse ID is at Benjy. Yeah. So yeah, just like I don't know. You can DM me. I'm quite open to. Yeah.
Cool. So,
I mean, you can look for not me, but the Simple Sum. We're on Instagram and Facebook. Our handle is at the Simple Sum on Instagram, so you can just drop us a DM anytime. Yeah.
I think everybody already knows you guys. I got like 50,000 followers, but yes. Anyway, so thank you for coming on. You can look for me at The Financial Coconut. You can email me at hello@thefinancialcoconut.com, and we will get back to you with any questions and any new ideas that you want us to talk about on a Clubhouse discussion or future episodes. So yeah, thank you everyone. Let's call it a day today. Enjoy your dinner, and more details will come, and then we will keep updating you guys. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Right.
on, Chuin Ting. Thanks for coming
Thanks,
on, Ben.
everyone.
Thanks for hosting
Bye.
with me. So love it. Yeah. Let's
for having
take
me.
this offline. Okay.
All right.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
See you.
Yes.